and I want to discuss your personal experiences in terms of um, building wealth
Hmm.
and, you know, personal finance, like your personal tips, and then
Hmm.
we'll probably kind of come back to some of the guests that
Okay.
you've interviewed. Could you share some of your personal tips? I know so far you've spoken about
Mm.
ETFs, you've spoken about um stocks and
Hmm.
things like that. Are there any other personal, from your personal experience, tips that you
Mm.
want to give to the audience in terms of personal finance? I think you've spoken about wealth.
Mm. Yeah, you know where I'm going a little bit more, and I'm going to be talking a bit more with like therapists, psychotherapists, psychologists
Mm,
about this. I think it's understanding who you are and what kind of person you are. I think in regards to money, I think you have to understand how you kind of feel around that. Because for example, I could say to you right now, do budget, I don't know, eat beans on toast every day. And you're like, no, I can't do that, right? So I would say, I think you have to understand who you are, what kind of person you are, right? Like, figure out high level. Is it easy for you to budget? Is it easy for you to be a spender? Figure out, for me, I was a spender, right? So I knew because I'm a spender, I need to kind of put in guardrails to prevent me from spending. So what one of those guardrails, for example, is okay, I put a certain amount of money in my account, the rest goes into a savings account,
yeah,
or it goes into another bank, for example, right? So let's say I have two banks, right? Maybe I've bank A is where my salary goes in,
yeah,
bank B is where like maybe my spending money goes for the month. So it's about thinking about who you are and then putting in the potential kind of guardrail. So yeah, for me, again, that was one of the spending kind of things that I kind of did. Um, yeah, I do. I've got loads of tips that are things I want to say, but what I want to do is I want to be mindful that again, personal finance is personal, right? So I
mm,
always want to say to people, whenever I'm saying what I'm saying, you also got to figure out what works for you and what doesn't, because it doesn't work holistically for everybody, right? So for example, I was speaking to somebody 2 days ago, right? And they were like to me, I'm not doing that budgeting lifestyle. Like, yeah, you know what? I'm gonna work my job and I'm gonna have a business because I like the lifestyle. When I say they're not saying that they're gonna budget, they do budget, but they're saying that they don't want to lower their expenses. So because they don't want to lower their expenses, they rather just make more money,
mm,
right? So figure out, are you that type of person? Are you the type of person like, you know what, like I like that high lifestyle, but I'm willing to work way more. I'm willing to have a side hustle. I'm willing to do whatever
yeah,
to finance that and more, right? I think the most important thing is that, you know, you always do have a surplus, right? I think that's like at a high level. You need to always have a surplus because that surplus is what's going to enable you to build wealth, right? So for me, right, on months where it's not hectic and I'm not traveling for weddings or holidays and stuff like that. For me, I like to invest. I mean, it's no secret. I like to invest, right? And I think that's where you really build wealth, right? I think there's two sort of avenues where you build wealth, right? It's really if you're not somebody who wants to be an entrepreneur, then your avenue is going to be in the stock market, right? Stock market or property, for example, or crypto. If you're risky, those are going to be your avenues in terms of building wealth. If you don't want to be an entrepreneur and you're happy, at 9 to 5, but you need to ensure that there's enough surplus that you can use, right, to invest in these things, right? Now, if you want to create wealth, not the stock market, not the property route, then yeah, it's got to be entrepreneur, right? That's another route for you to potentially create wealth. I technically I'm kind of doing both, right? I've got my 9 to 5, I've got my business in terms of the podcast, and I'm still investing. So I'm doing both, right? And I think you could do both. I think both is good because then it means you accelerate, right, as well. Right. You got the one that's a bit more long term, maybe that takes care of you, I don't know, between 40 and 60. And then maybe the wealth you rapidly create now, takes you up to 40. I don't know. You have to kind of figure that out for yourself. So I think really, again, it's really understanding who you are, and then from that, always ensuring that you understand how to kind of manage your finances, right? I think it's very important. People don't like the word budget. There's loads of different ways you can call it. It doesn't have to be a budget. You can call it a plan. You can call it whatever you want. I think what's important is that you have an eye on what's coming in and what's going out, and you make sure there's a surplus for you to put that to work. And you know what's crazy is the surplus also doesn't have to be put into the stock market. It could also be used to start a business, right? You know, or used to quit your job to start a business, right? So the doing that just gives you the flexibility. That's what you have to see. Having a surplus gives you the flexibility. You have to see it in that kind of way. So yeah, for me, it's really mindset, knowing who you are. You know, if I was to number it, I think really understanding who you are. Are you a spender? Are you naturally a saver, right? Are you doing these things of, do you have visibility of your finances? If you don't, okay, get visibility of your finances. Okay, cool. You've got visibility of your finances. Are you, you know, do you have a surplus, right? Are you making more than you're spending? Cool. Okay. What are you doing with the surplus, right? And that's how I think if you structure it in that way, you're gonna be able to kind of build wealth. And that's how I think about it. Obviously, there are other things you can do. There's loads of other things. We've got pensions as well that I would say, and I'll briefly mention it because when I was young, I didn't really take it seriously. But a lot of companies these days are doing matches, company matches. So that's another a pension is wealth, by the way. I mean, the government, I can't say too much because I haven't read it in depth, but the government are going to start going after people's pensions because you can also pass that on as well. It is wealth. So if a company is saying they will match up to 5% of your salary, that's 5% they're giving you for free. So look out for a lot of these free things. A lot of things I did, right? And again, now the more I'm doing it, I'm remembering. I just took advantage of all the free money that was out there. So when I say for my deposit, lifetime ISA, I took advantage of that. It was that I got an extra $3,000. That's free money.
Yeah.
Like, why not? Right? Who doesn't want free money? So I was taking advantage of all of these things. I lived in a housing association building, which gave 20% off. I just was using the system. You
Yeah.
have to use the system, but also, right, the system won't tell you about these things.
Of
So
course.
nobody,
Yeah.
it was intermediate rent. Nobody told me about it. I found it by accident. I was like, oh my God, this is
By
great.
accident. Okay.
Use that. I was like, yeah, well, 20% off the private rent. Okay, cool. I can afford to live on my own. It's a bit cheaper than what it would be normal. Okay. When I say for mortgage deposit, okay, free money here. Do you get what I mean? So I think it's taking advantage of that pension. You know, got my employer paying into my pension. So it's taking advantage of all of these things, I think, as well. It's important.
I mean, these are more than fantastic tips. These are great tips for at least even a beginner. Honestly, these are fantastic. Thanks for sharing this, Ato. And I think all of these tips, I think for someone to take them on is really gonna do a lot for them,
Yeah,
honestly.
I hope so. Yeah.
Yeah. But I think I also want to mention that of course you're not a financial advisor.
I'm not. Yes, I'm not a financial advisor. Let's make sure that. So this is no advice. This is I wouldn't even say guidance. This is us just talking,
Yeah, we're,
right?
we're just
But
talking.
exactly. I would always say do your own research, especially when it comes to, you know, whether it's investing, pensions, accounts, all of that stuff. Always do your own research. That's why I say personal finance is personal. Just understand again at a high level who you are, and then use podcasts like this to guide you to find your way, but always make sure it's personalized to you. This is more information. This is information you're talking about. So it's no different to like if I saw if I wanted to invest in a global fund and it had they normally have a fact sheet and it tells you, okay, this global fund's invest in this, and that. You know, that's what this is. This is just pure information. We're not telling you to act on it. You kind of just kind of use it to figure out what you need to do.
It's fantastic, honestly. Wow. I think there's a lot of people can take from that. And I think some of the books and some of the things that you mentioned, we will try and link it down in the description so you guys can go check out some of this stuff and of course this podcast. I want to kind of go through maybe one other guest that you've had on that you've learned something from. Is there one that you can share?
Yeah, you know what? I would say I could share all 145. If
We,
any
we,
of
we
my
wish we
guests
wish
are
we can.
listening,
We wish we can.
if
but of
any of
course,
my
no
guests are
time.
listening, I appreciate you all. You know, I appreciate you all. And this me sharing this is not favoritism. I just want to make that clear that they've all been great, right?
Yeah.
I'm just maybe it's recency bias because you know, it's easier for me to think of the most recent ones.
Yeah.
But actually, you know what? I'll speak about somebody who's actually gone in. Franklin, his episode was brilliant, right?
It was, yeah.
And he, what I really liked about that conversation, what I kind of learned, and I think what many people say that they kind of learned from that conversation
Mm.
is, I think what he was trying to get across was that, you know, if you want money, it is out there, right? That's exactly what he was saying in the episode, right? And really, for you to get that, you just need to make sure that you're in the arena where that money is circulating, right? So he's always thinking about being, okay, is this a sector or career, or, you know, that has money in it, that is abundant with money. That's how you kind of have to think about it. And also, you don't necessarily need to be at the top of the ladder. What he was saying basically is that if you think about any kind of industry, any kind of sector, people at the top of those sectors are wealthy, like crazy amount. Okay, for example, right, like McDonald's, right? A lot of people are like, oh, I ain't gonna work at McDonald's, right? But the CEO of McDonald's is probably making millions,
Absolutely.
right?
Absolutely. Honestly.
Exactly, right? So money's out there, right? At the end of the day, right? It's about thinking about what sector you're in, where are you on that ladder, and you don't necessarily need to be at the top, because even the people at the middle, if it's a sector where there's a lot of money, let's say for example like AI, cybersecurity, even if you're mid-level, you could be getting six figures. For sure, for sure, for sure. For example, I work in tech, right? As I said, I was a tech
You
consultant.
did, yeah.
So in technology, software engineers, yeah, a lot of them get six figures, 150, 140
Yeah.
a year. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
You know, some of them can get more if we include like where you have stock options and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
So it's about being in, and that's just
money.
from a 9 to 5 point of view, not
Yeah.
even a business. It's just about being in the arena. If you really want money, it's out there, basically. So that's what I kind of learned from him, thinking a lot about that and trying to, it's almost like cutting loose ends. If this arena is dry of money, let's leave that and let's go to arena like technology, AI, you know, some maybe green, you know, green energy in the
Yeah.
future is probably going to be,
Sustainability.
you know,
Ooh,
sustainability.
huge,
That's probably
huge,
going to be
huge
huge
one.
amounts
Oh
of
my
money, right?
goodness.
That's
Yeah.
that's how you have to kind of think and position yourself, whether it's a business or whether it's a 9 to 5. The other thing that we spoke about that I think is very important for people to hear is about maintaining a certain level. So, for example, a lot of people want to be millionaires, right? But let's say you had 1 million in your account. Cool. Yeah, you're a millionaire, but you're not going to live a millionaire lifestyle, because if you lived a millionaire lifestyle, you'll be broke in a year,
Absolutely.
right?
Absolutely.
So
It's all relative. Isn't it?
exactly. So a lot of people don't think about this. They think about the end goal, but they don't think about the other side of how do you actually instead of thinking about a number, think about the lifestyle.
Yeah.
What lifestyle do you want? Okay, I want I don't know, 2,000. This is sounding great. I want a 5 grand a month lifestyle, where that in terms of expenses, right?
Yeah.
Okay, you want to be able to, let's say, sustain that without any issues. Let's say 5 to 10 years. Again, not financial advice. I'm just giving
Yeah.
numbers out here as an example, right? Let's say that's something you want to be able to sustain over 5 to 10 years, right? How much do you need to sustain it? That's how you should be thinking.
True.
Not the other way around of I just want some random figure of 10 million. Because it's likely when you get to the million, okay, let me buy the 500k house or 600k house. Depends on where you live in London. Some houses are a million.
True.
You might just buy it and you've got nothing.
It's gone.
Oh,
Yeah.
I want the expensive car. And then before you know, oh,
Yeah.
damn,
You
what's
gotta
happened?
reverse engineer it, don't you?
Exactly. A lot of people don't think of the other side. It's always I need to get there. Okay, when you get there, let's say we gave you 1 million now. What's the lifestyle like?
Oh, are you gonna increase a lifestyle, or are you gonna maintain?
People
a
are not going to
lifestyle
live
you
a
already
10k
have?
lifestyle at 1 million.
Yeah.
They're going to try and live 1 million lifestyle at 1 million. That's what happens.
Yeah, it's foolishness. I mean, I just had a millionaire sit in your seat
Yeah.
not too long ago, and when you speak to him, when you see the lifestyle he lives, he doesn't look like he's blowing that money. He looks like he's very savvy. No pun intended of your podcast with his money.
Yeah.
You know, so I think it really does come down to the mindset.
Yeah.
Because that's one thing he talked about, the mindset that, you know, you can get to a certain amount of money, but you have to have the mindset to be able to manage and leverage it,
Exactly.
and not just to blow it and spend.
Exactly. Exactly. It's very important. It's very, very important.
Very, very important indeed. I do agree with you. Now, this has been fantastic. There's a lot of tips that you've given to our audience, and I think they can get a lot from this. I want to discuss, before we wrap up, I want to discuss some myths that people have. Hey, Global Guardian citizens, I hope you enjoyed this episode. Now, if you want to get more updates from podcasts like this, including finding out about the latest news, events that we got coming up, and so much more exciting things, please check out our newsletter. I'll encourage you to sign up in the link in the description below, or just head over to thesoundofcrowd.com/newsletter. You'll be able to sign up on our website. Thank you for watching to the end, and I'll see you in the next episode.